is The Mark Cox Show.
To bring those jobs back into America, we wanted to make much easier, it has to be much easier to manufacture in our country and much harder to leave. I don't want companies leaving our country, making their product, selling it back, no tax, no nothing, firing everybody in our country. We're not letting that happen anymore, folks. Believe me, there will be a very substantial penalty to be paid when they fire their people and move to another country, make the product, and think that they're going to sell it back over what will soon be a very, very strong border. It's going to be a lot different. It's going to be a lot different.
You know, it's funny to hear the president talk about that because he was just yesterday, and I didn't get to this interview that I had with Paul Ryan, but earlier this week, Paul Ryan did a really good job of explaining some of the crazy tax laws that we have in this country that affect products that we send overseas. He said we shoot ourselves in the foot so often, because we'll make a tape recorder, and the Japanese will make a tape recorder, and we tax the tape recorder when it's built, and then we tax it again before it leaves the country, and then it gets to Japan, and it gets taxed again by them before it goes on the market to compete with their tape recorder. But when they send one over here, we don't do the same thing to them. He said, so what we need to do is level the playing field. I think Donald Trump is talking a lot about these things, and I love to hear that. And I'm hoping that it takes place sooner rather than later, that some common sense is brought into this equation. Welcome back into the second hour of the Mark Cox Show. Lots to get to this hour, of course. Scott Pruitt has been approved as head of the EPA, so some common sense is about to grab control of that organization that's been out of control for the past 8 years. That's great news today. There's some more fake news rolling around, claims that the White House is going to mobilize the National Guard to round up unauthorized immigrants. This is causing mayhem on the left. Reports like this have got these La Raza people on the left about to lose their minds. The Mexican consulate can't keep up with all of the requests of people wanting to get in the door and apply for Mexican citizenship for their kids. If they came here illegally, they want to take their kids back with them if they get deported. That's what they're doing. But the White House says that's not true. So we're going to talk more about that. Plus, I'm going to tell you what the Mexican consulate and what some schools have been doing to teach these illegals how to skirt the law. Just unbelievable. It's all coming up here today on the Mark Cox Show. Right now, my guest is Larry Pratt from the Gun Owners of America, often a guest on this show, and we're glad to have him back. Larry, how are you?
Good to be back. Thank you.
Absolutely. You know, I've followed these crazy gun restrictions in Chicago for years now, and even before they had concealed carry forced upon them by the court over there, they were trying to do everything they could to keep good guys with guns from getting guns, although the bad guys have them all the time. And even after they passed concealed carry, Chicago continued to drag its feet on giving people somewhere where they could even go get trained to carry a concealed weapon. So now the court has finally slapped them down again. What's the latest on that?
Well, it's what you call vicious compliance. So what they've done, okay, all right, we're going to provide a way for there to be training facilities, but they can't be located within 500 feet of a residential area, school, park, place of worship, and you know, I think somebody figured out that there was about 200 square feet or something
somewhere in Chicago.
I exaggerate, but very little of the city would be available. It'd have to be in a warehouse area as well. They just don't want people protecting themselves. They don't want them being able to easily learn how to do that. And I guess they're perfectly happy with the criminals running roughshod.
Chicago is the only town I've ever been in where I've ever been threatened by someone, and of course, at that time it was a point where I couldn't have had a gun even if I was a legal resident back then. I understand President Obama is paying a visit again to Chicago today. And I'm
with
thinking,
a Secret Service who are well armed with machine guns and every other kind of imaginable weapon.
he's safe. At least he's safe when he's up there, I guess.
But best place to be would be around that guy because he's the only one who's got adequate firepower for the gangs.
Yeah, Larry, it brings to mind when I think of what President Obama's tried to do when he was president with gun restrictions and trying to put additional bans on this or bans on that. Here in the city of St. Louis, we're in the midst of a Democratic primary, and a Republican primary for that matter for mayor, but it won't matter because in St. Louis, like Detroit and a bunch of these other big cities that have been controlled by Democrats for decades, whoever wins the Democratic primary will be the mayor. And the lady who's leading the race right now in the Democrats, who's most likely going to be the next mayor, has recently introduced an assault weapons ban that she wants to try to get moved through the Board of Aldermen here in the city. And you've got to read this thing. It really looks like they went to a textbook somewhere and tried to jot down what might be involved in an assault weapon. Whoever wrote it clearly had no idea what that was. And it would basically ban, I don't think I've got a semi-automatic pistol that wouldn't be banned. It would ban anything with a magazine that held more than 5 shots. I mean, it's just insane.
Well, yeah. When you have a magazine, most times a magazine that comes with a gun, in this case maybe 5 rounds, could easily be replaced by one that would accommodate many more than that.
Sure.
Many more perhaps than even is practical. And so, that would eliminate all kinds of, unless they have a police exemption, it would probably include police guns.
Yeah, I think that they did put something in there for police, for law enforcement.
But
yeah, believe it or not, they thought that one through. Fortunately, it hasn't moved yet in the Board of Aldermen, but we're keeping an eye on it because we expect those sorts of things.
What you're saying is Missouri needs a preemption law so that these kinds of things can't be done. This is incredible.
Well, I think that I did speak to a state legislator who told me that this thing would be DOA because she can't override existing Missouri laws and big portions of it would be thrown out immediately. And I'm sure it would be challenged in court.
So it's an exercise in official lawlessness. Yeah. How does she think that makes her look?
Well, it wins her points with the progressive left in St. Louis, which is, we've got a street here in North St. Louis that has been deemed one of the most dangerous streets in America.
Lawlessness are us.
Yeah, that's it. Let me get your comments for a minute on what's going on with immigration around the country right now. There's a paranoia out there about what Donald Trump is going to do, even though his stated goal is to get rid of the bad ones, the bad illegal immigrants who've come here and committed crimes, felonies for that matter, already have deportation orders against them from the previous administration, and all he's done is go to the Immigration and Customs Enforcement folks and said, look, go ahead and act on these. Why we're lifting all this nonsense? If they've been deported, deport them.
And it would be nice if the genuine people that have suffered oppression, the Christians, the Yazidis, other minorities in the Middle East, were given preference because they're the ones that really are in fear of their life and real danger if they stay over there. So, but that's something that we don't hear talked about. It's we're supposed to somehow bring in a bunch of Muslims who really can't be vetted. Those are not even countries over there. They don't have, I'm not even sure they have driver's licenses in some of them, but they certainly don't have any kinds of real records. There's no way to vet anybody on anything. It's just kind of a Wild West. So, and we're supposed to let people in from those areas? I don't think so.
Yeah. Well, I had Catherine Herridge on the other day. She made a similar point that in some of these countries that are involved in this order, you can't just call up their government and ask them for a background check because nothing like that exists. I mean, it's just vetting these people I don't even know how you do it. How do you even start? Where do you start? I mean, it's a question that nobody seems to be able to answer.
And if you're in fear of your life while you're waiting to get that non-answer on vetting, you call 911. I'm sorry, but there is no such number.
Right. Yeah. Boy, that's the truth. It's sad. It really is.
Well, I pity the people that have to live in those kinds of areas, but they're stuck, and we shouldn't be bringing their problems into us. That's our government exists to protect us from just that kind of thing.
You know, I heard back during the election, Donald Trump speak of some sort of a national carry card, and I wonder if that was just election talk, or do you think that's something that he might pursue at some point?
Well, hopefully it's not precisely that, but we were very interested that he was aware of the concept. What has been proposed in the Congress, and the bill that has the most oomph behind it, is one that is in once again, has been in for a number of times, and it would say that if you have a concealed carry permit in your state, that will be treated as a driver's license in other states. So you're good to go. You don't have to worry about whether you are or are not in compliance with, say, the laws in Chicago. Chicago would simply have to recognize your Missouri concealed carry permit.
Yeah. See, that would be fantastic because, you know, we're in that miserable situation here where if you drive into Illinois for some reason, even if you've got a legal concealed carry permit in Missouri, you've got to take your firearm out, put it in the back of your car, store the magazine somewhere else, and it's miserable. And given the fact, I just wish there was some way to regulate it to make it the same across the country, so you wouldn't have to fight those things.
Well, this would basically respect the states that are handling this, and at the same time make it so that you're good to go like you are with your Missouri automobile driver's license. There are now, by the way, I think the governor of New Hampshire may have signed it today. So there's 13 states that say that if you live in our state, you don't even need a concealed carry permit. Mm-hmm. If you are resident in our state, and that's spreading. This could go as high as 20 by the end of the year. So we're making progress on rediscovering the Constitution, that the right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. What a thought.
What a thought. Great thought, too. Larry Pratt, listen, thanks for your time. I direct people to your website, Gunowners of America, GOA.org. People can go there. Gunowners.org. People can go there and sign up for alerts. And
yes.
Absolutely.
Absolutely right. Thank you. That's a free service, and it gets things done.
Yep, it sure does. Keeps people up to date on the latest. I appreciate your time, Larry.
Thanks so much, Mark.
Yeah, take care. Larry Pratt there from Gun.